inheritance in diabetes mellitus is roughly just 15%. So what contributes to the development majorly of diabetes mellitus is what we eat and then our lifestyle. So if we can correct these two, our diet and our lifestyle, then we are extending our lifespan, and then the quality of life of an individual will be extended. Then we have other special cases in diabetes mellitus. We have pregnancy in diabetes mellitus. This is different from this gestational diabetes, which happens when a woman is pregnant. In this case, the woman was already who is already diabetic, and now she is pregnant. So this is part of the special cases we have. And then we have some children that develop diabetics, pediatrics, and then you have some adolescents also. They have an acronym for that, MODY, MODY, maturity onset diabetes of the young. So some people develop diabetes at their puberty age, in their teenage years. And then you have geriatric. Some people, normally diabetes sets around 40 or so, but some people, they fall into the trap of diabetes mellitus when they grow old. So you have geriatrics, and then you have diabetes mellitus in dialysis. Somebody is already have a serious kidney issue, and then he's diabetic. This is also a special case of concern. Then you also have self-care in visually impaired patients. Some patients, they are visually impaired and they have diabetes. So their problem is just that they cannot take care of themselves. So this is also an interest topic for, I think that will interest the panel. And then we have transplantation of some important organs, of some important organs. Let's say islet of Langerhans, when somebody is undergoing surgery for transplantation, or sometimes pancreas transplantation. Then these are all special cases, just by the way. Then we will quickly move into diabetes management. Diabetes management is basically, there are three cornerstone approaches to manage diabetes. Number one is diet modification, which we will talk extensively today. And then number two, we have lifestyle modification. And then number three, we have pharmacological intervention. These are in what would I say? In that order. Diet is the most important, followed by lifestyle, and then followed by pharmacological intervention. They call it intervention when the first two fail. Then we quickly look at diet and control. The goal of dietary advice are to achieve and maintain good health and quality of life, with avoidance and management of short-term symptoms, including hypoglycemia, and freedom from the long-term complications of the disease for as long as possible. So what you are doing with diet in diabetes is to make sure that sorry, I'm being a little distracted. My system is now working. Let me quickly see if I can join. A minute. All right, let me continue. Then another important point is dieting is essentially the same for both type 1 and type 2 diabetes mellitus. So when you are advising somebody on dieting, somebody with diabetes mellitus, you don't ask whether it's type 1 or type 2. The approach is essentially the same. And then for people with diabetes who are overweight, for people with diabetes who are overweight or obese have a wide range of complications of their obesity. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, although it's echoing. I don't know if both your phone and your laptop are connected to the meeting. We can hear you, it's just echoing.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry for the inconvenience. It's highly regretted. Let me quickly share the slide so that we can see what we are doing. Can you see my screen?
No, we can't see the screen yet.
Can you see it?
I think we're about to. It's loading.
Okay. Hope we can proceed. Can you see?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes. So I'm already on slide 4. So as I was saying, sometimes what I'm saying is when you are advising a patient on dieting, you don't discriminate or you don't bother yourself asking whether the patient is type 1 or type 2 diabetic. You just give them the same dieting formula, though we'll come to see where sometimes type 1 diabetes has a little bit different approach, in dieting than while also its own unique requirement. So what I'm saying is sometimes you will also have a patient who is diabetic but is obese. So in that case, some of the complications from that patient might not be from the diabetes. They may be from the obesity. So in that case, you need to seriously watch the BMI, body mass index of that patient. And then you also monitor closely his blood glucose. These two parameters are very critical in obese patients. And then saturated fats, which we will see also in the next few slides, should be tightly regulated, especially in persons with obesity, hypertension, and other cardiovascular disorders, okay? This is because diabetes is one of the cardiovascular leading cause of death, in diabetes both type 1 and type 2. And fat intake seriously exacerbates the condition. And then, as I said, for type 1 diabetes, greater modify the progression of cardiomyopathy by restricting protein intake. So for type 1 diabetes, their species don't give them protein, much protein. Their protein should be highly and tightly regulated due to the risk of nephropathy. So the ultimate goal of management depends on the priorities relevant to that individual. And then let's look at carbohydrate as a class of food. 45 to 60% of daily calorie intake. Mind you, here we use the word, when I say food, in the quantity of the food. No, the calorie generated from that food. I just put it here in bracket that 1 gram of carbohydrate is equivalent to 4 calories of energy. So, meaning if a patient needs 100 calories of energy per day, then between 45 to 60% of that energy should be able to come from carbohydrate, both type 1 and type 2. Not all carbohydrates are. So you have to be very selective in the carbohydrates they consume. So carbohydrates are selected based on their glycemic index profile, which is GI profile. The lower the GI, the safer the food. So let's look at what GI means. GI is a number from 0 to 100 given to foods, based on the rate of digestion and absorption, and then based on the content of soluble fiber content, soluble fiber content of that food, and then the structure of the food and other foods taken with that food. For instance, now, if you look at this picture on the screen, it's a pasta, and then you have some other foods all together. So if you are considering the GI of this pasta, and then the patient take the food with all these other components, then the GI of the food has already changed. So other foods taken together with that food in consideration alter, or let me say have effect or influence the rate of absorption and rate of digestion. As I said, GI is from 0 to 100, and then normal GI should be any food from 0 to 50. Is from 56. We consider food, we call food a high food when its GI is above 70. So we have some examples here. We have low GI foods. Example is yam, guinea corn, and wheat. Not all GI foods are whole, unprocessed, as they come from farm. And then you have medium GI. You have yellow maize, you have whole wheat bread, you have brown rice, and then you have basmati rice. All these ones are category of medium GI food. And then you have high GI food, which are most of the refined foods we are eating, like what? Like semovita, like all these sugary drinks, pasta, white bread. All those, processed foods fall under the category of high GI foods. So as I wrote here on the bottom, is emphasis should be given to locally available options for affordability, accessibility, and compliance. If you are discussing with patient and you are advising him on dieting, you should pay much emphasis on what is locally available to that patient. And then you have the options. You can just use your phone and Google search what's the GI index of, let's say, what do you call it? Water leaf. And then Google will tell you if there is any information available about water leaf and the GI index, Google will tell you. And then you write them down, and then you and the patient discuss, to arrive at the best option based on accessibility first of that food, and then affordability for the patient. Then we look at proteins. Proteins, the safest protein for diabetic patient is lean proteins. As I said during my definition of diabetes, I said it's a dysfunction of carbohydrate, dysfunction in metabolism of carbohydrate, protein, and fats. These three major classes of food. Now we look at carbohydrate. From here, you can see that any diabetic rule out, high GI foods for him. You can say, please, any GI index more than 70 should not be taken by a diabetic. What is the parameter that you can use to determine which protein is safe for a diabetic patient? Then we call them lean proteins. These are proteins devoid of fats, devoid of any fat, and should be encouraged. This protein also should constitute 10 to 20% of daily calorie intake. As I said when I was talking about carbohydrates, I said carbohydrates should be able to contribute a minimum of 45%, a maximum of 60% of daily calorie intake of diabetic patients. So protein should be able to contribute 10 to 20% daily. Like carbohydrate, protein also has a calorie content, 4 calorie content per 1 gram of protein. This is the same with carbohydrates. So you have example of what? Example of lean proteins, you have egg whites. When you boil egg, the egg white, not the yolk that is inside, is lean protein and is very healthy for diabetic patients. Then you have turkey breast, then you have duck breast, you have low-fat dairy, you have skimmed milk, you have fish, you have chick, black, and kidney beans. These are all beans. We have chick beans, we have black beans, we have kidney beans. These are all safe, source of proteins for diabetic patients. And then you have tofu and tempeh. These are also some example of lean protein. So the takeaway here is most of the proteins that you should recommend to such patients should not contain fat. They should be pure proteins. As I said, some other time is the safest, or let me say the best poultry meat for diabetic patients is duck, D-U-C-K. We call it agwagwa in Hausa. So that's the safest source of, poultry protein for diabetic patients, not this poultry, fowl, these chickens, and the second best is, of course, turkey. And then we move, we have a note here that says protein intake should be highly regulated in individuals with type 1 diabetes mellitus, as there is high risk of nephropathy. So in considering protein for your patients, you should also bear in mind that if that patient is type 1 diabetic, there is very high risk for him to develop nephropathy if he is taking too much protein, as we will also see with fats in the next slide. Now we are moving to fat. Okay, fats. The safest fat, we have 3 categories of fat, first of all. Number 1, we have monounsaturated fats. And then number 2, we have polyunsaturated fat. And then we have saturated or trans fat. This unsaturated fat, we call it cis meaning CIS, cis monounsaturated fat. And they should be able also, like proteins, to contribute 10 to 20% of daily calorie intake for diabetic patients. But then mind you, the calorie content of fat is more than twice that of both protein and carbohydrate. So let's say you are given 1 gram of carbohydrate, 1 gram of protein, 2 grams. So if you give 1 gram, just 1 gram of the surface fat, which is cis monounsaturated fat, and you give 1 gram, this 1 gram of fat far outweigh both the 1 gram of protein and carbohydrate combined, because 1 gram of monounsaturated, or let me say fats generally, contain minimum of 9 calories of energy. So meaning you should also use, you should always use your, sense to just calculate. If you take just small amount of fat, it will be able to generate so much energy, and of course ketone bodies in your system. And ketone bodies are some of the problems we are having with diabetic patients. Then we have animal sources of these monounsaturated fats. We have duck fat. As I said earlier, duck is the safest poultry meat for diabetic patients, because both the meat and the fat that is in ducks is safe, are the safest, source of both fat and protein for diabetic patients. And then you have the goose fat. Then you have lard fat for some of us who are Christians and used to take pork meat. So pork meat is also monounsaturated fat. It has fat, but the fat is monounsaturated and is safe to some extent for diabetic patients. Then you have plant sources of this monounsaturated fats. These plant sources, we have avocado oil, we have olive oil, we have peanut oil, we have canola oil, we have almond oil, we have pumpkin seed oil, we have sunflower oil. All these are sources of cis monounsaturated fat. And if there is this any of these source of fat, or let me say source of fat for diabetic patients, they should be considered first because they are the safest. And then in the absence, or let me say, because you cannot run away from other sources of fat, then you have polyunsaturated, and then you have saturated trans fats. And these two combined should not be more than 10% of the daily calorie intake of a diabetic patient. As you can see, the monounsaturated fat can take from up to 20% of daily calorie intake, but for polyunsaturated and saturated trans fats should not be more than 10% of daily calorie intake. So polyunsaturated fats are found in yogurt, in chia seeds, in meat, and in poultry. And these saturated fats are also found in butter, in cheese, palm oil, the almighty palm oil that people are trying to, what would I say? Like people are trying to make it seem, a gentle guy, but actually it's not. It's a saturated fat. So palm oil, arachis oil, we have also palm kernel oil and poultry skin. In the event, anytime, it's good to tell your patients, anytime that a patient wants to eat chicken or any of this poultry, please, he should do his best to remove the skin. The skin has high concentration of these saturated fats. Then this is a note also that fat should be strongly discouraged for individuals with obesity and cardiovascular complications. As I said earlier, they exacerbate cardiovascular events in the body, these fats, and then already cardiovascular diseases are the leading cause of death in diabetic patients. Then we talk small about vitamins. As I said, we already discussed about the 3 major classes of foods. We discussed about carbohydrate, proteins, and fat. Now let's look briefly at vitamins, because there is need for more conclusive evidence on the benefits of vitamins and antioxidant nutrients in terms of protection from cardiovascular disease and general health benefits for the diabetic and non-diabetic population. There is no any clear evidence that if somebody is diabetic, he should just be taking a vitamin supplement. There is no conclusive evidence that somebody should just be taking antioxidants. You know, of course, there are these issues of concern with oxidation reaction in the body, especially for diabetic patients. But then there is no conclusive evidence that these supplements help them. There is no evidence that taking this supplement will help their condition. So pharmacological doses of supplements are therefore not advised. However, it is recommended that a diet rich in foods which naturally contain significant quantities of antioxidants, especially fruits and vegetables, is followed. Sorry, I didn't include a slide about fruits and vegetables. But let me just say here that the safest fruits for diabetic patients are apple and grapes. You can see the picture here by the side. Apple and grape, they are the safest. They are the safest fruits. Other fruits, yes, they can take them in minute quantity, but they should be mindful of their high, most of them fall under the category of high GI carbohydrates. Because all of these foods, including the vitamins, the fats, including the proteins and the fats that we discussed, contain significant amount of, carbohydrates. And then they release this the rate of release of carbohydrate from these foods into the blood circulation is what we call the glycemic index. That is what the GI means. If you eat food now, how much glucose does that food release into your systemic circulation at a time? That's what we call GI index. So for foods that have high GI index, what it means is that the food they eat quickly release, the nutrient into systemic circulation. So as we are now approaching the holy month of Ramadan, for some of us that are observing and have patients that are observing the fast, we should be very mindful, of the food we are advising them to take. If, for instance, now you advise a patient to take rice mash, tuwon shinkafa, at dawn, for sahur, for sahur, it means in the early morning hours of that day, the blood glucose level of that patient will skyrocket, because rice, or let me say rice mash, tuwon shinkafa, is a high GI. It's a high GI food. So in the early hours of the morning, you will now have high, blood glucose level. From then, around afternoon, maybe some factors, he did some activity, he took his drug probably, and then some exercises, some activities he did. The glucose, or let me say the food, is now burned in the body. It's now exhausted. So your patient is now back to square zero. No food, he will be very tired, very weak, very hungry, between noon and the evening. And then early morning, the blood glucose will spike again, which is not healthy and it's not good for them. But some of these foods that have low GI index, it means they release the glucose or glycemic component, of the food slowly into the blood circulation, meaning they have much longer time in your stomach. You won't feel hungry very quickly. And then the rate of release of, the glucose into your systemic circulation is in such fashion that it will not harm your system. So these are some of the things we should be advising our patients. And then third point is, what I want to also tell us, remind us is, for diabetic patients, they should not, under any condition or under any circumstance, they should not eat what we call belly food. they should not fill their stomach with food at a go. They should rather eat small. Later, when they are hungry, eat small again. Later, when they are hungry, eat small again. Like they should increase the frequency of their eating than to increase the quantity they are eating at once. So let's hear from, this is, I think, the second to the last slide, which is patient care. What is expected of you as a clinical pharmacist to do to your patient who comes to you for advice, on dieting? Number one is to assess the readiness of the patient to change his eating behavior. Of course, sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I don't know, but there is this urge, this appetite with people. When you restrict somebody from eating something, that's when Shaitan would be whispering to his ear that this thing is tasty. Maybe you should test it now. This is the last time I will do it. Tomorrow I will not eat again. And tomorrow he will still go back. So you should assess the readiness of that patient to change his eating behavior. This is the number one priority. When you assess that, and then you and the patient together, you explore and address barriers to change in eating habit. Some of the barriers might be economic. Some of them might be like me now that I'm not married. I'm eating from, let's say, my parents' house. I cannot force them to change what they are cooking just because of me alone. Maybe we are 10 in the house. So these are some of the barriers that you need to extensively discuss with the patient, even some of the mothers, because they are not, some of them come from polygamous family, and then they have children, they have co-wives, they have children from the co-wives, they have the husband. So because of the woman alone, maybe probably they might not change, the eating habit or some of the things they are doing in the house. So these are some of the barriers you need to discuss and to find solution, to address you and the patient together. And then sometimes you have these psycho-socioeconomic issues, as I somehow explained it above. You need to social, as I said, from polygamous family, and then economic factors, maybe some of the food, as we all know. If you want to maintain a healthy diabetic diet, is somehow, to some extent, more expensive, because olive oil now is far more expensive than arachis oil. What you call it, sunflower oil is far, far more expensive than palm oil. So these are some of the factors that we need to truly look at for us to arrive at a reasonable ground, we and our patients. And then you have this management of hypo and hyperglycemia. Let me say this. Before the advent of insulin in 1920s and sulfonylureas in 1940s, the primary approach to treating diabetes mellitus is just dietary control. So at that time, they came to observe that some of the patients with type 1 diabetes, you will almost starve them. They are starving because you are giving them just very little food, and the frequency has been drastically reduced, sometimes just once daily and very little. So you are starving the patient, and then the condition is not improving. The condition is not improving, especially for people with type 1 diabetes mellitus. So very quickly, the patient will now lose some of his vital organs, probably his first of all his sight, then his kidney, and then paralysis will set in from neuropathy, and then you lose the patient. So but with the advent of insulin and then sulfonylureas in 1940s, and of course we have many more other classes of drugs now that are used in managing diabetes mellitus. So there is very high tendency or very high risk of patients going into hypoglycemia, especially during Ramadan. In the morning, he is hyperglycemic. In the afternoon, he is now hypo. So how do you manage that? You adequately inform them give them just hint of what they are eating and how long their food will last in their stomach. As we all know, carbohydrates generally, pure carbohydrates generally last for 3 hours, roughly 3 hours in the stomach. Proteins, 4 to 5 hours, and then fat and oil for up to 8 hours. So if somebody eats something that is too fatty, you know that this person probably might not feel hungry for the next 8 hours. But then there is issue of, dehydration. You will be thirsty if you eat, oily food. So you just have to devise means, between you and your patient. And then, of course, they have to be working with their sachet of glucose in their pockets or in their bags. In the event of they feel any dizziness or chills or any sign of, hypoglycemia. And then when you are also discussing with your patient, those discussions should be innovative. You should innovate. What you discuss with patient A is not the same thing you discuss with patient B. You try to understand your patients and then you individualize their treatment. So you may ask, when should dietetic consultation begin? If you have a new diabetic patient, dietary consultation should start within 4 weeks, first 4 weeks of diagnosis for new patients. And for already established diabetic patients, but without any crisis, no neuropathy, no nephropathy, no any complication, then, and they are very good with their diet, then you should also be reviewing their diet annually, at least once in a year. And then to evaluate the clinical outcome of this dieting that you are doing to your patient, you should be watching at their weight. They should not be gaining weight, especially those with type 2 diabetes. Type 2, they should not add weight under any circumstance. They should try as much as possible to maintain a very healthy BMI, body mass index. And then you should be using their weight, to check how the outcome of their dieting. And then you should also be using their lipid profile. And then you should also be, you can also use HbA1c, glycated hemoglobin, for to understand how far they are and how good they are doing with their dieting. So I'm happy to answer questions if there is any. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much for this very, very insightful presentation, Dr. Abubakar Dawood Magaji. In fact, this presentation, before, opening the floor for everyone to, anyone that has questions, I would just like to make a comment that while listening to your presentation, all I could think about was how this really highlights the key role that we pharmacists, can play in patient care. When you talked about personalized medicine, diabetic consultation, managing them and looking at these lipid profiles, managing hypotension, hyperglycemia, it just lets us know or reminds us that we have such really important, role to play in patient care beyond just the traditional way that we practice pharmacy. And that's a very important thing to remember. As pharmacists, we can be both the first point of contact and the last point of contact for patients. And that gives us an edge because we have this power to actually make a huge difference in the way that they receive healthcare. So please, the floor is open for questions. Please, let's ask as many questions as we would like to in the next 10 minutes before the meeting ends. Thank you very much.
Do you want to give permission? I see some people raising hands.
Okay. Let me just look at. Okay. All right. We have Namama. Can we start with Namama? Then we have Fam Kori also raising her hand. So let's start with Namama, please.
Can I be heard? I'm Namama.
Sorry?
Can I be heard? Can I be heard clearly?
Yes,
I hear
yes.
you.
Yes, we can hear
Okay,
you
good.
clearly.
Dr. Abubakar Magaji, thank you for this wonderful presentation. It was very informative, and I know you will do justice to it. It's really wonderful. I just have a small contribution, if you will permit me. Is contribution allowed?
Yes, please. Go
Okay.
ahead, please. No worries.
You have excellently said things that people should take. So mine here is a bit about things people should not take, because there is myth around diabetic food, and orthodox practitioners are always battling with those that are not so orthodox. They will tell people that you can eat this, you can take this, and so many of them boast that they can cure diabetic disease, citing religious texts, usually out of context. So there's this misconception about brown sugar and honey. That honey is very good for the diabetic person, and brown sugar too could be taken. There are no two statements that are very, should I say, that have low elements of fact in them than this. Because the honey a person can take, let's even assume that honey is good for argument's sake. But the honey that a person in Nigeria can take, are you really sure that this honey is not made from sugar or doesn't have much sugary content in it? So it's really troubling when people with diabetes tell you that they have been told so. I like also the fact that you stress that people's food should be used to determine their food combination, because part of the reason why people don't go to do these things are because you have placed a person on a very expensive diet that they cannot sustain. So your food will be taken, and it's usually being calculated in portions. That if you can make fruits at least half of your diet, or more than half. It can be more than half, but it shouldn't be less than half. So it's portions. Nutritionists know how they tell people to do that. Because of time, I will have to stop here. Thank you very much for allowing me to make this contribution. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Please, we have another hand raised from Kore before we go to Abubakar, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you so much for the beautiful presentation. Okay, Fam, please, when you were presenting, you said something about diabetic patients not eating to become belleful. Let me put it. That was the way you said it. That it's better they eat more frequently than for them to eat large quantity. So I really want to please throw more light. Can you just please give the clinical reason behind that? Because I actually found the point very interesting, but I want to understand it more. So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me quickly thank you very much for your wonderful questions and comment. Let me quickly react to what Famna Mama said. I know this is why professional bodies like CPAN are in existence. It's just to make sure that we are active with our social media handles. Some of these myths, I can call them myths, or I don't even know the right term to use for them, but some of them are just, somebody will just lie down dream in his sleep and come out the following morning to be telling people in very loudspeaker, they are louder than you. You that went to school and studied, you are afraid to type, on your own timeline to tell people. But somebody is going to buy 200,000 naira loudspeaker and enter the streets and be telling people rubbish. So I think this is this is why we are here, to make sure we sensitize, the population that honey is not safe for diabetic patients. Date palm, especially date palm. Do you even know why some of the scientific reasons why Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said we should take date palm after during our breaking of fast is because it is a disaccharide. It quickly, digests and release glucose into our body. So imagine somebody taking a lot of it and then it quickly digests and it releases a lot of this, glucose, fructose, whatever into your system. I think it's actually very bad, and it is why we are here, that we should sensitize people. And secondly, you talked about, I don't know whether I heard you right, you talked about herbs and other medications, on orthodox medications. What I would say here is, if somebody is diabetic, he is already at risk of, nephropathy, which is a kidney problem. So for that person, that same person to be taking herbs, you can just imagine, okay? You can just imagine. So this is also our field to own. We have to own this field and sensitize people to the best we can, okay? And then the second person that asked question asked why more frequency than eating to, let me just say, even for healthy individuals like me and you, it's not healthy to eat belly full at once. It's not that healthy to eat, because our body is a system. Our body is a system, and it has its own way of handling most of these foreign objects, foreign whatsoever we are injecting into our systems, including food. So now there is a quantity of, there is a certain quantity of insulin released if you eat food. Now somebody went and eat beyond, the capacity. So after that, postprandial glucose level will definitely overshoot. When you eat small, your body handle it, you digest it, your body process it, you use it for your own energy. Later, you feel hungry, you eat again. This is just the basic scientific reason and the basic common sense. I don't know whether I'm making sense, by the way, but it's just, you are not overwhelming your system. Their system is already overwhelmed because their body, their insulin, probably there is insulin resistance or there is insufficient insulin in the first place. Then somebody come and eat high dose of food. How can he process the food? How can he convert such food into glycogen to store it in the system? So these are some of the things we need to, consider, and then to raise awareness within our population. I see somebody also raising his hand.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, please. Sorry, I was the one who asked the question, please. I'm sorry. Just to get more clarification, please, before you call the next person. Okay, Farmer Baka, please, what if the person is actually an ulcer patient? Because I learned that it's not good for ulcer patients to eat in bits. What if the patient is both diabetic and both an ulcer patient? So in terms of that, eating in bits, not eating in bits, how can we balance both?
Let me just tell you one thing here. You see me like this. I also have ulcer. And the best trigger for my ulcer is when I eat belly food. This is just the honest truth. I'm telling you from personal perspective. Whenever I eat beyond what I used to eat, definitely I need to have either MMT or omeprazole by my side, because I know for the next 1 or 2 days, I will not be me again. So it's even helpful for somebody with ulcer to eat in moderation. Eat in moderation. When you feel hungry, the thing that ulcer doesn't want is you are hungry and you refuse to eat. But you eat, you feel hungry, you eat again. You eat in moderation. I don't know, but this is just, I insist that everybody should eat in moderation. If there is need for increasing the frequency of how many times we eat, then so be it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fam. Please, I hope that you clear for your answer, your question.
Abubakar?
Okay, the
It's
next
okay.
person, Abubakar, please,
Yeah,
so that we can wrap
yeah,
up.
good. All right. Good evening, all. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes, we
can
can.
hear.
Yeah. I'm a worker. I'm not a pharmacist or a doctor. I'm diabetic for like 7 years. I was diagnosed when I was 30 years old, so I'm now 36. And what Mr. Famdi Abakar you said was insightful. You said a lot of things, but you know, I've been I've had experience and everything. I've been studying about it because I need to take care of myself. Yeah, I had some issues by myself handling this kind of cravings, foods, and everything. And two, the factor of having drugs being expensive now. Before you buy Gabos milk for just 2,000, now it's about 9 to 10,000. So why I'm here is just to get something from you guys to understand it more better and also tell you the side of a patient. Some people go to herbs because they can't afford all these medicines. Sometimes doctors don't like give them a soft landing. We tell him don't eat that, don't eat this, don't do this. Once you come out, that's why they have that craving. Like when you ask him to stop eating, that's when he say, okay, this is the time I want to take this. So sometimes you need to like understand the patient. Try to give him, don't give him a death sentence. Give him that this is something you can handle. It's just a way of life. Change this little by little, little by little. And secondly, actually, I don't want. It's not a question. I'm just telling how I handle my own. It's not like easy stuff. It's it's hell, but I manage through. Sometimes I go I go out of line, take coke, take chocolate, take everything. But I still don't have any serious complication or any serious. I haven't had any serious crisis. I still check my glucose level. But recently, I just found out something about this cider vinegar. It do actually work. After eating a little bit carbohydrate in the night or in the morning, I take a cup, 1 tablespoon, and check my glucose level. It always try to maintain it. But I don't know if there's any research on it. I found it on Google and I read about it. So us being there's uh, I don't know how to put this question. Is this is it good for patients to try all these herbs, the locally herbs, all the natural, like the mango leaves, the moringa leaves? Because I found that they work. But from your own point of view, do you think we should stop it or what?
Yes, thank you very much. And I think you might be the last question. So first of all, thank you so much for sharing your own experience as a patient, a diabetic patient. And then secondly, I would say it's never easy. It is why we say it's a disease. And a disease, whenever somebody is struggling with any disease, he has to, endure, and he has to be patient. He has to put a lot of things on hold, and he has to initiate a lot of others, So thank you so much for your insights. And then secondly, on your question on herbs, as I said, when somebody is diabetic, whether type 1 or type 2, that person is already at risk of having kidney disease or kidney failure. I'm not saying he will have it, but he is at risk. I don't know whether I'm making sense. He's at risk, risk of, nephropathy, because this, what you call it, this glucose, whenever it moves with water. It's what do you call it? It's osmotic substance. It's something that moves with water. So, and then it comes to the kidney. It permeates all these small blood vessels, including those in the glomeruli of the kidney. And then they can now, because they are
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Oh,
We
okay.
can.
Hello.
I think
We
you
lost
went
it.
off briefly. Yes. Oh,
Okay. Network. Okay.
yes, network. Oh, let me see. Let's see after a minute if it will come back. Oh, I
So,
think the net. Well, just before he comes back, or we don't know if he'll come back, but I know that it's past time for the meeting to end. What I would say is, perhaps you may want to, you may reach out for further, explanation regarding your question. I think you asked about the apple cider vinegar, whether it's safe,
yes,
helpful,
yes.
and then herbs as well. So you may be further clarification if you reach out after the meeting to him. Yes. So, and thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining.
Hello, sorry. Can I just mention about the effect of herbs with your medication? Yes, they have Sorry, am I allowed? Let me take permission before going.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
It's a quick one, please. So, no problem.
One.
Please.
So they have your bitter leaf, your moringa. They have hypoglycemia. They reduce blood glucose. You are already taking you mentioned galvusmet that you are taking, right? That has hypoglycemia.
Yeah.
Imagine the combined effects. It will lead to more hypoglycemia for you, and it will make the hypoglycemic. In addition to the likely damage to the kidneys as a result. These herbs have chemicals in them too. They are also medicines. So imagine the interaction and the orthodox medicine you're taking and all that, to your liver especially, and then to your kidney. It will be like double effect on lowering your blood glucose level, which can predict. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our chairman wants to speak, please. So that, Mr. Chairman, sir, please.
All right, good evening, everyone. Please, am I audible enough?
Good evening, sir. Yes, you are audible.
Okay, thank you, Fatima, and Dr. Dawood, our presenter, Dr. Magaji Dawood. Let me first of all thank all of you for what you have done tonight. I know it's not easy to prepare a lecture like this and present on a platform like this. So we really appreciate Dr. Dawood Magaji for coming, Abubakar Magaji Dawood for coming on board to do this tonight. But I'm much more happier with the attendees this night, because when I looked at the attendance participation, I discovered that about 53 persons were online at this meeting. And that's a very good one, especially for a Valentine's night like this. I know that most people are with their lovers and loved ones, and even in my house I'm already pepper soup with my family, but I just have to join and be part of this. Most importantly, I want to thank everyone who said, and please, I want to plead with us. that we need more hands in the CPAN National Education Committee. Please, we want more volunteers. You can get to us through any of the CPAN National Executive members. We need more hands. As it stands right now, a lot of things are being done by some of our ESCO members and a few members of the National Education Committee. So please, we need more hands, and we would like those who can volunteer. You will all agree with me that what we are doing, clinical pharmacy, is the way forward for our profession. If we must really be taking serious in the healthcare system, the healthcare thing, then we cannot do without clinical pharmacy. That is the only means of communication and the language that our sister health professionals understand. And what we are doing to continuous learning, continuous education like this is the way to go. A lot of us may not work in hospitals to be doing ward round and residency and be updating ourselves, but we can always attend lectures like this where people have done research, have read very well, and then within a short period, they will add to our knowledge. So please, I'm making an appeal this night while commending the presenter and the moderator that please, we need more hands and they would like more volunteers. Thank you very much. And once again, happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. So I think, okay, I can see a question, but I think that, we have passed the time for the end of the program already. I don't know if we would like to have, I don't know if the speaker can entertain one more question. I can see something by Dr. Uchenna O here. Could you explain the effect of...
Please go on. Let's have a few more minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
So sorry, let me quickly apologize. My network thrown me out. I am back on my phone now.
Okay.
So I think I missed some discussions. I'm just coming back.
Yes, actually, you were speaking before it went off. You were talking about the glomerular filtration in the kidney and how, a spike in the glucose level affects kidney function as well.
Yes. So what I said is, if you could remember my definition, I purposely designed that definition to fit into my presentation today. I said diabetes mellitus is a dysfunction in 1A. It's a dysfunction in metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins, and fat. That's A. And then B, I said diabetes mellitus can also be seen, as a dysfunction in both the structural and functional components, of blood vessels and nerves. These are the two major systems that diabetes mellitus attack. But then if you look at the glomeruli of the kidney, it's majorly nano blood vessels that are there doing filtration. So now if diabetes mellitus can cause dysfunction on blood vessels, meaning they can cause dysfunction on those nano blood vessels in the glomeruli of the kidney, and then this will ultimately lead into nephropathy, what they call nephropathy. That is disease of the kidney, or kidney in chronic cases, or let me say in severe cases, kidney failure. So what I'm saying is, somebody asked about bitter leaf. I see it here in the group. What I want to tell you here is bitter leaf, kidney doesn't have much issue with bitter taste than the liver, because most of what goes to the kidney is after the liver has deactivated that substance or has biotransformed it into another compound for excretion. Things go to the kidney only when they are ready for excretion, and then most of them that go there should be able to be filtered and pass through to the urine. But when somebody is diabetes, meaning even the glucose that is in his body is not retained by the glomeruli. It's being passed out. In the process of that passing, it causes, it scratches. I don't know how to put it, but it, somehow, let me use the word scratch. It somehow scratch other parts of the kidney as it is moving out, going to the bladder. And this now will cause a major issue to the glucose is already going to the kidney every time, whether you are healthy or you are diabetic. What happens is the glucose should not be able to pass the glomeruli. It should be retained and be returned back to the body. Whenever it passes and is now seen in urine, that's you have glucosuria, meaning you have glucose in your urine. Then definitely this is one of the signs that somebody has diabetes, and that diabetes has already started affecting the functions of his kidney, and it's a serious case of concern. So the issue here is, if you are taking other herbs, glucose has already permeated all those, blood vessels. Now, not only the glucose, other things can just be able to pass deep into the kidney. And when they pass deep into the kidney, you don't know what effect they might have there, whether positive or negative. So most of the things that you don't know, what I'm saying is, in essence, what you don't know, please just leave it. If you know it, but you don't know how to use it, leave it. If you know it and you know how to use it, but you don't know for how long, also leave it. This is just just be on the safer side. So I don't know for bitter leaf specifically, as we mentioned the number. I think this is a call for all of us to look more about it. But one thing I believe is, bitter leaf is a very dark, dark greenish leaf.
Plant.
Has meaning it has iron and other micro elements needed by your body. Whenever you see a leaf that is very dark green, it means iron is there, and it means other elements, other micronutrients needed by your body are also there. So you cannot just dismiss diabetic. You cannot just dismiss that this person should not use bitter leaf or he should use it. I don't actually know the direct answer to your question, but I think this is a call to action for all of us to look up and find out. So thank you. Somebody, I don't know who is raising hand again.
Sorry, can I shed more light on this bitter leaf and moringa?
Okay.
When taken in the natural form, it is without process, without cooking it, you have the amount of the chemical very high amount in what you call medicinal amount. So there are medicines in that natural state. So you see people selling it as powder, and then maybe you just do a kind of, you are taking it as a medicine. But when it is cooked, then the amount, the active ingredient, like Vernonia, that's bitter leaf. Extensive studies have done. It has been proven to have glycemic effect. But as in its natural form, once it is cooked, you take it, you cook it in your, maybe put it in your egusi soup, or even the moringa, you cook it, you make it as your salad. Once it's cooked, it's food. So you would have, the body would know naturally digest it, and it is taken as food. So it's like safe to take it cooked than to take it raw. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Moringa, they call moringa here the wonder leaf. It's very wonderful something. Everybody, whether healthy or not healthy, I think it's a very good something to be using once in a while. That moringa.
Dr. Tini Uloko, I don't know if Dr. Tini Uloko.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Yes, good evening. Thank you.
Okay, I missed most part of the presentation, but Dr. Abubakar, thank you for doing a wonderful job. And I want to say that most of the questions that were asked, you try to answer most of them within your scope. But I also want to contribute on one question I had about ulcer and diabetes patient. That's maybe an ulcer patient and it's also diabetes. Can they, how do you, I know somebody said something like that.
Yes.
I think I heard something like that.
Yes.
I just want to make a contribution about that, yes, because taking a lot of food because you are an ulcer patient, that is not the cure for ulcer. The cure for ulcer is to get it treated. Because I have seen a lot of patients with that misconception. They say they have ulcer, then they eat all sorts of things. And then some that are not even diabetic before, they end up becoming diabetic because of their negligence, their lifestyle measures. They just eat anything, and at the end of the day, they become obese. And you know that obesity is part of the risk factors for diabetes. So as an ulcer patient, it's better to get the ulcer treated instead of indulging in different kind of causes. You have ulcer. Because eating a lot of food doesn't mean that the ulcer is going to get cured. It's better to get it treated. And then the Abubakar, that is a patient that is among us, that said he takes all types of food and it doesn't have the complications of diabetes. I just want to make us know that complications of diabetes does not start in a day, because you cannot see somebody standing and say, maybe this person has complication of diabetes. No, as a diabetic patient, you have to be careful what you eat because it's a long-term effect. You can't just take anything and what you are not supposed to take, and then you think that maybe at the end of the day, you don't have the complications. No, complications don't arise in one day, because most of the time we even see patients that present at their first call in the hospital with complications. They didn't know they have diabetes, but when they are screened, we discover they don't only have diabetes, but they already have the complications that have set in. So as diabetic patient that you are, you have to still be careful about the diet. Your diet, the other drugs you take, like the herbs, if you are taking it, or maybe you are not taking it, you are contemplating taking it, I advise you that you should seek medical advice carefully before you take anything that may harm you. That's just what I want to contribute. And regarding herbs like moringa and bitter leaf, I know there's a lot of studies that has been done on those plants. Even Dr. Comfort, I know she did something on moringa, and I presently am working on bitter leaf. So I know that there's a lot of studies that have been done, and these herbs have been taken with the normal anti-diabetics. Patients are taking it. I did a study to find out whether there are people that are taking Vanonia, that is bitter leaf. And most of the time you find out that they're taking it unofficially. It's not that they prescribe it for them on their own. They decide to take it in different forms. Some they boil it, they drink it, some they cook it, and then some as vegetables, just taking it like a soup or something like that. They take it on their own and they claim it works. And studies have shown that Vanonia has hypoglycemic activity. But the combination with other anti-diabetic, that is the issue. You see that it will exacerbate hypoglycemia or any other thing. That is part of the studies that have been going on. So we can't really say, you have to be careful. No matter what, even if the drugs is safe and it's food, we have to be careful in combining it with normal anti-diabetic medications. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your wonderful contribution. Okay, Dr. Maureen, you want to say something?
Okay, I don't know whether any of the desk officer of endocrinology specialty group is here on this call to give us a word. Any of them? Can you help me move the person talk? I don't know.
Hello, I can't hear anybody.
Okay, I also can't hear anyone. Dr. Maureen was asking about the desk officer for endocrinology group,
I was
but
around here to speak to us.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if
In absence of any of that, I just want to thank Endocrinology Specialty Group for making tonight's clinical meeting possible, especially pharmacist Hafsa Olufumi Lalo. Thank you so much. And also I want to thank the presenter, Dr. Abubakar Magaji, and our dear moderator, Fatima Adamu. Thank you so much. We're glad that tonight. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Ma. And thank you all for joining us today. Thank you very much to the speaker for this wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. All right, then.
Thank you. Thank you too. I didn't expect I would be even presenting because the time was limited, but still I managed to put one or two things. Just hoping that we
more than one or two
have benefited from what we've learned so far. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Thank you to everyone who joined, and hoping to learn from other people too in our subject.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.